I welcome you all to the second lecture on the environmental provisions with regard to environmental provision and international investment agreements. In the previous lecture, we discussed about the general obligations that are imposed by environmental provisions in the international investment agreement. So, in this lecture, we will be looking at the exception clause, particularly general exception clause that you will find in an international investment agreement, because at least one of the legitimate goal in the general exception clause will relate to environmental protection or public health or conservation of natural or exhaustive natural resources, right. So, this is why it becomes pertinent for us to look at the general exception clause that you find in an international investment agreement, and that is relevant for us to look into the examination of how does environment interplays within the field of international investment law. So, the exception, generally talking about the concept of exception, is it something very significant or there is a rule? Then why should we talk about an exception to that rule? Because any regulatory measure that a host state takes, one of the key significant point that would come into the question would be whether it is applied uniformly, or whether it is applied in a non-discriminatory way. So, the uniform application of a regulatory measure will take a center stage whenever an arbitral tribunal reviews that regulatory measure, or even from the enforcement perspective, whether there is a uniform application. But the reality is that an uniform application of a rule will not, or a regulatory measure will not achieve the intended effect. There may be some circumstances that will fall within the exclusion of the rule itself, right. So, in such cases, exception becomes plays a very significant role that is easily understood by the maxim, which means that exception will test the rule itself in terms of certain areas. So, in that case, when exception is a very crucial concept, and a rule without an exception may not achieve the intended purpose, and uniform application of a rule without taking into account of certain particular circumstances, that may sometimes lead to injustice as well. So, in that context, exception plays a significant role, and this is something even Ronald Dworkin had also spoken about it in his work Taking Rights Seriously, where he mentioned that exceptions also had to be listed when somebody is drafting a rule, and if a drafter lists the maximum possible exception of a rule, then that is when he says that the rule gets gets complete. This is what Ronald Dworkin has remarked. Then the significance of exception is something we can also find in the ILC report on fragmentation, where ILC has also stated that some exceptions or a pattern of exception may emerge when a rule is applied, and that may be justified also in the context of the subject matter of that rule, right. So, most of the scholars, or even the ILC report, all of them do agree on the significance of exception itself. You cannot have a one size fits all approach. There is a rule, then it may not be applicable under all circumstances. So, the significance of exceptions is something that we can easily derive. So, there is a general obligation that is levied through IAA international investment agreements, and as we have discussed earlier, these days the IAAs do not focus only on imposing obligations on the state. There are corresponding obligations imposed on the investors as well, sometimes even on the host state. So, there is actually a balance. So, that is why we call these treaties as balanced treaties. So, in that case, when there is a obligation imposed, then there is also a scope for providing a general exception clause or an exception clause. Actually, an exception clause can be a general and particular. So, in the next lecture, we will be talking about particular exceptions as well as other miscellaneous works. Other miscellaneous provisions relating to environment in an IA is very small, so I don't want to keep that as a separate lecture. So, I have included it in the next lecture itself when we will be discussing about particular exceptions. So, in this lecture, I am going to concentrate only on how the general exception clauses are worded in an international investment agreement and how it should be worded. I mean, basically we will be looking at the general exception clause, and we will also critically evaluate the utility of general exception clause. But I think with what I have spoken till now, I hope you will also appreciate the significance of having an exception to the general obligations, right, that are imposed by international investment agreements. So now, is it necessary to have a general exception clause? If we, come to that question of, is it necessary to have a general exception clause? As we can empirically see that not many treaties have a general exception clause. In the 329 treaties that I have looked at, there are 73 BITs have a general exception clause, and 8 treaty with investment provisions have general exception clause. So we can see not many have a general exception clause. So not having an explicit general exception clause, would that limit or restrict the scope of the arbitral tribunal to consider as if the general exception clause were there in the international investment agreement? Take Philip Morris for instance. Here, the tribunal applied the police power doctrine. Even in the absence of a separate carve out, the tribunal was able to do so. So, even without an exception clause, the tribunal may find exception that it may find it inherent within the rule itself. The exception may be embedded within the rule itself, right? But it is desirable to have an explicit provision. The reason being, because Philip Morris had contended that you do not have the Switzerland Uruguay BIT did not have a separate carve out, whereas other BITs of Uruguay have a separate carve out. So that was a contention. So we do not know whether arbitral tribunal will accept such a contention in future when it is made by the investors. Completely, it may depend on the discretion. So when there is an explicit exception clause that is provided in an international investment agreement, so what essentially the contracting parties of the BIT are doing is they are limiting the discretion of arbitral tribunals, and this will be an excellent way for the contracting parties to ensure that the arbitral tribunal also focuses on non-economic values other than the economic interest of the investor, and sometimes even the host state, right? So, non-economic values automatically get integrated if there is an explicit provision in the IEA. As we will be discussing in lecture number 43 on applicable law, then you will get a clear understanding as to why I am insisting on a provision that talks about exception. It could be general exception, it could be particular exception that we can leave up to the contracting parties, right? So, but having an exception clause will ensure that the arbitral tribunal's discretion is restricted and they are forced to apply this particular exception provision as well. So, at least it will form a part of their consideration when they are reviewing a regulatory measure, especially an environmental regulatory measure. They will also give weightage to the fact there is an exception clause provided in the BIT itself, right? So, with that introduction, maybe in the next segment, I will talk more about the general exception clause. This is, I mean, in this segment, we have only discussed generally about the exception, which is applicable to general exception as well as particular exceptions. In the next video, I'll talk about the need or the significance of a general exception clause. Then later on in the next segments, we will critically evaluate the provision that we generally find in international investment agreements. Thank you.